Hello and welcome to A Life of Creation. My name is Chad and I'm the host of this channel. If you like what you've seen so far, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification button so that you know when I release new videos. Today we're talking to a high school friend of mine. We became friends because we both loved hockey, we both loved the LA Kings, and we both really loved hardcore music. And he is still very much involved in the hardcore music scene. We are talking to Adam Lentz of Revelation Records. Let's hear his story. Just use an overlay. I'm here with Adam Lentz of Revelation Records, and he's going to give us a little history of what he does and where he came from, I guess.
I came from Fullerton, California, as did you, Chad.
Yep.
Went to high school together and stayed in touch over the years, which is awesome. You might be I think you're the only person from high school that I've talked to consistently. So
Wow.
put that feather in your cap.
There you go.
Um, but when I was in high school, I got very involved in the hardcore and punk scenes, and I ended up getting a job in 2002 with a record label that I mail ordered from when I was in high school. I used to call in with my mom's credit card number, mail cash, and get records and shirts from them and stuff. And I got a job there in 2002, uh, where at this point I run the distribution side of things. I'm in charge of all the buying and selling of the records, and I've also signed a fair amount of bands to the label and work with things on that end. And right now, it's wear a lot of hats. I am involved in a lot of the, social media, a lot of the outward facing things. I still work with bands a lot, but the bulk of what I do is dealing with other record labels, and I do a lot of sales. That's like a big part of what I do is I sell records to stores and distributors all over the world. Just about every continent we have a reach to, and I find a lot of enjoyment in that and getting music that I'm passionate about out into the world.
Now, are you still pretty involved in scouting out new bands or anything?
Not as much because I think my relationship with the music itself comes and goes, and um, right now I'm at a point where I'm not really checking out as many bands as I once was. And I think that comes with getting older.
Right.
And my tastes don't always align with what is popular within the hardcore punk universe. So, I think a lot of the bands that I really like, I don't think would sell all that well. And at the end of the day, we are a business, we have rent, we have payroll. So, just because I like a band a lot doesn't necessarily mean we're going to sell enough records for it to
Right.
be, uh, profitable or even, you know, not be in the red. So
Right.
uh, lately, I have not been working as much on the label side as far as
Right.
signing bands.
Yeah. I had one of our old music buyers at work tell me one time, he's like, if I like it, probably won't do well. If I really don't like it, it probably will be the bestseller.
Yeah, and I don't think that is too far off of my opinion on things. Like so much of what I bring in from other labels that sells, I wouldn't listen to in a million years. But there's a lot of bands that I will bring in that I think are the best thing ever, and will sell four pieces, and I'll have to return them and be like, well, I thought it was good.
Right.
Apparently, the rest of the people who buy from us don't necessarily think so. But this other band that I don't think is good at all, we just sold 600 of them.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's
You gotta, it's important for me to put my personal taste aside
right,
sometimes. And I think there's a line though of like, things can get kind of distasteful or like really bad. And, there's a reason to not bring some certain things in, but you really have to learn to put your personal taste aside and do what's best for everybody.
right,
And, check your ego and check your whatever you like and enjoy. It's not as important.
right. Yeah, I experience that a lot in my line of work as well. I don't shoot everything that I
Yeah.
personally really enjoy. Actually, most of the time, I could care less about the license that we're shooting, but I
Right.
enjoy the job of it and
Yeah.
the process of it.
Yeah. And I enjoy the spreading of music, and I enjoy helping other record labels succeed, and I enjoy helping record stores and record distributors succeed. It almost doesn't matter what I'm selling them, as long, if the whole thing is humming and going well, then I'm pretty happy, regardless of how I feel about the actual product.
Right. I mean, ultimately you are creating or desire a healthy music industry where
Yes.
bands and music are encouraged to go out and play and sell their records and just give them
Yeah.
opportunities to do things they wouldn't normally be able to.
Yeah. And what I, and talking about the whole creation thing, and, I've created an environment for other people to succeed, and I've created a way for them to have their creative outlets be heard
Right.
and be experienced by other people.
Right.
So that is a form of creation in itself, as I've created avenues for self-expression.
Right.
And that's important to the whole creative process. Is, like when you were in bands when you're younger, when I was in bands when I was younger, we needed the people to help us. Like, I didn't have money to put out records.
Right.
So when I was in bands that wanted to put out records, if it wasn't for someone else giving us that opportunity, what would we have done? If it wasn't for people booking shows in their hometowns when we went on tour, we wouldn't have had those places to play.
Right.
So being the facilitator is as important as the creation itself.
I almost feel like um, there's a degree to where, the people who were involved young as a younger person, they were at the forefront. They were playing the shows, they were booking the shows, and they were doing all this stuff. But then, you have those who either just totally leave because they got older and just disappear, or you have those people who still um, love the scene and support the scene, and they usually
Yeah.
become the facilitators,
Life.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
record label
Lifers.
holders. Yeah,
And this is something that I talk about fairly frequently with people who, some people are like, you're 44 and you're still doing this. Well, like, when you're young, you don't have the means and the knowledge to do with a lot of the things that are necessary for a band to go do their thing. So it's almost like, as you get older, your roles change,
right,
and you become the person. I wouldn't have had the money to put out a record like that. That's expensive, dude. So, having the person who's the one generation older, who knows the clubs to book the shows, who knows the pressing plant, who knows how to do a layout, and, it's I want to give the opportunity to the next generation of kids that was given to me.
right,
Because when I found punk and hardcore, I was in a dark place. Like, you know, adolescence and teenagerhood isn't easy, and having that come along at a time when I really struggled with self-identity and alienation and wondering where I fit, like that, it sounds corny, but it might have saved my life. Like, who knows what kind of awful place I would have been without that. So, getting older, giving someone else that opportunity, and, maybe they're in a dark place too, and
right.
this will bring them some peace. Um, that's really important. And those of us who do choose to stick around, it's almost our duty because someone did it for us. We owe it to the next generation to do it for them.
Yeah, I would say, punk and hardcore definitely kept me on the straight and narrow.
Yeah. And the what's so cool about it is the ability to be able to create and do anything yourself and make an impact. Like in larger music world or in almost anything else, like one person can't do a whole heck of a lot.
Right.
But one person starting a label or like starting a band, like there's so many small towns all over the world where maybe one kid or Black Flag, he showed it to a bunch of people. And then all of a sudden, this one small town has a bunch of bands and a really cool scene.
Right.
And when I was touring a lot, we'd have a date in some town that most people probably haven't even heard of. And the other guys in the band would be like, just wait, this will be cool. And you play in this tiny town in Iowa, and it's amazing because like one person started this thing and made an impact.
Right.
And that's what's so awesome about it is like one person can have a huge impact. It's extremely empowering.
Right. Well, do you want to talk about you being in a band? Because you were in Control, right?
Yes, I was in control from 2002 to 2004. I got kicked out of the band on stage at a show that my dad was at. That is one of my claims to fame. But yeah, I was in the band. Talking about creativity, I didn't write any of the music, but I did my part to bring the music to people, you
Right.
know. I learned songs, played bass, went on tour a bunch of times and got to see the country.
Right.
And when you're an absolute geography junkie like me, that's like the best thing ever for a young person.
Right. I don't remember you being in a lot of bands. You were in that band,
Mhm.
and then what was
I was
the
I was in that band Response about 10 years ago. Yeah.
that long
So
ago? Oh, dang.
yeah. But
Time
dude,
flies.
I took what, like 10 years off between bands? Something
Oh, at
like that.
least, yeah.
Maybe 15. And the first show back, I was actually playing with this other band that I was doing with a bunch of kids around here. And it was like my first time playing a show in 15 years or something. And dude, I was so nervous. I almost puked. And like I'd been in a band and toured a long time, but for some reason this like first show playing live again was just and have you ever been to Munoz Gym in Bakersfield?
No.
It's a boxing gym, like in a shack. And it was there. And I was just beside myself. It was crazy. I couldn't deal with it. And I wore sunglasses the whole time because I didn't want to think anyone was looking at me. It's ridiculous.
Well, I've been
But
there. When I sang in a band, I would almost have panic attacks because it was just so hard for me to do.
yeah,
And
like
I
I
just
hate
pace back and forth for like 20 minutes before we played.
I always hated playing on stages because everyone was looking at me. And
No, you're
like
the bass player. No one's looking.
yeah, like I love playing floor shows because like the front row of people sees you and that's pretty much
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Like on stage you look out and it's like, "Oh, dude, like there's 150." Like the first show I ever played in my life, there was like 400 people and the guitar player points at me and goes, "Don't mess up." And I was just like, "Oh God, this is just terrible." And a bunch of my friends drove up. It was in Santa Barbara and it was like packed and it was frightening, but it went really well and the show was bonkers. Like our singer got his nose broken during the set and it was great, you know? So yeah, I got over it.
Yeah. I don't think any of my bands have ever played in front of that many people.
It's
It's just the way it was for us.
it's weird.
It was fun.
It's really weird.
I think my biggest audience was I filled in for the band Sexually Frustrated. There was the side project band for Kyle, the bass player of Flatfoot 56. It was like just like old school hardcore band, kind of making fun of, or not making fun of, but paying homage to the band Lust Control.
Oh
That
yeah,
was back in the day for the Christian scene, and they played three songs before their set at Cornerstone, and I played bass for them. That was probably the craziest show I've ever played.
it's such an odd feeling.
It was very odd.
And sometimes they're so big, like the people watching you cease to become human beings, and it's just this sea of heads. Like the biggest show I played was we opened for Avenged Sevenfold at, at the Ventura Theater, and it was like sold out, and I think there was like 1,000 people watching us.
Yeah, that's a big place.
And it has like, full sound and everything, and you look out there, it's just like, well, this is my life. This is
Right?
I didn't feel like I deserved it. I didn't feel like I deserved to be there.
Right.
Like most people who were there for Avenged Sevenfold didn't care about us. Like they didn't care. But it was in Ventura, which is where In Control is from. So like half the people were there for us.
Wow.
So
All
when
right.
we played, it was actually bonkers. And I
Nice.
actually managed to get thrown out of the show. And it was a show that I played with all my gear still inside. Like the security guards threw me out and wouldn't let me back in and stuff. And what a
What did you
night.
do? Do you remember?
During one of the other bands, I did a stage dive over the barricade, over the bouncers, and did like a full front flip into the crowd. And they didn't like that.
Right. Yeah.
But
Most
they
venues didn't.
basically, six guys picked me up and literally, like the old like westerns where a bunch of people like throw someone through out like a window. It was like that, but it was through a door.
Right.
They threw me out on the sidewalk, and I was like, "Put all my gears in there," and then we don't care. Okay.
You're like, I literally just played.
Yeah, I just played a show. Like, we don't care. You just
Yeah.
got thrown out of your own show.
You've been to a lot of shows.
Yes.
Tell us some of the crazier stories. Now, I feel
Uh,
like I remember you telling me that you got knocked out by Davey Havoc at the Glass House or something.
he did. No, it was in San Francisco at Slim's.
Okay.
Yeah, he hit me very, very hard. We were up there for an Ignite Nerve Agent show, and he hit me very hard. It wasn't intentional,
Right.
but yeah. I actually had a knack for getting in fights or beat up or hit at shows up in the Bay Area during that one year I went to Santa Cruz. Like there was a nerve agent show at another place where some jocks started beating me up because they didn't like how I was dancing, and Lars Fredrickson from Rancid pulled them off of me and basically watched my back for the rest of the night. But yeah, Davey Havoc, he's a hard dancer.
Yeah.
Like I've seen him at a few shows dancing. Like he brings it.
Yeah. I think that's what you had told me. He's like, dude, he danced hard and he hit me
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, he hit me really hard, and he didn't. I don't think he even apologized, which is even cooler. Like you're a very recognizable dude, like wrecking fools, and you don't care.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I've insane stories. Uh, getting getting pepper sprayed multiple times at a show at a gym in Fullerton, and uh, I mean, what a lot of people don't. The 80s punk in LA was pretty violent.
Right.
There was a lot of violence in the 90s too. I don't think it was on that scale,
Right.
but there were a lot of shows we went to where, a full on brawl would break out with Nazi skins. Um, there was one show in Riverside with Nazi skins, and all the Unity skins happened to be there at the same time, the anti-racist guys. Well, that didn't go well. And I ended up hiding underneath the stage, jumping over the barricade and hiding underneath the stage because there were so many fights going on around me, and I was, scared out of my mind.
Yeah.
You know, riot shows like there was, I think it was Agnostic Front and Nerve Agents at the Glass House where I was getting in my car at the end of the night and someone was getting pummeled on the hood of my car while I was trying to drive away by a bunch of dudes. And but that was normal.
Yeah.
Like there were shows at the showcase where, they anticipated so much violence that you had to have an ID to get in so they could identify you if something happened, or if you got taken to the hospital, you'd have your identification on you, and they
Right.
wouldn't let you in without it. And it was just like, okay, this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah. I
And
think my scariest show was at the showcase. It
oh
was
yeah,
it was The Business and Peter and the Test Tube Babies.
okay,
And a bunch of like street punks showed up for Peter and the Test Tube Babies, and then just a bunch of skinheads showed up for the business. And it was just left
yeah,
and right. It was
oh
nuts.
yeah, yeah. And there were shows there that they would sell out so heavily.
Yeah.
Like there was one of my first times there that it was so packed and so hot, and they still let people smoke in there that I fainted. But it was so crowded, I didn't fall down. I
Right.
was so like sandwiched in there with people, like I fainted, but my head just go whoop, and then I woke up like, oh, hey, like I've been knocked unconscious there. I've been, that's where I learned to stage dive really well,
Yeah.
so I don't hurt people. So, that place was as important to my upbringing as just about any other building on this planet.
Yeah. Same. I mean, that's where I learned photography, really. Showcase.
Yeah. And there, as a photographer, there's not really anywhere to hide. I took pictures at an AFI show there and I was on stage, but there's so much stage diving and stuff that I was getting just as battered on stage as I would have
Yeah.
been in the crowd.
Yeah.
But like I loved it. I
Yeah. Oh, it was
loved it.
amazing.
Like what was so awesome about that era is going to school on Monday. And all these people that I hated, they had no idea what we had just gone through over the weekend. And they
Yeah.
wouldn't have lasted 10 seconds in those environments.
Right.
Like, and when I felt that, apart from everybody and alienated, I needed that thing that was mine that no one could understand. So
Right.
that was it.
Yeah.
And it made me feel tough and hard. Like, dude, I got in a fight this past weekend at a show, and these people they have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, sure, they probably thought they were awesome because they went and drank a bunch of beer with their friends.
Right. Yeah. After the
Like,
football game.
yeah, yeah. Like I did 50 stage dives and you know watched a bunch of people get get stomped. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
I wasn't allowed to go a lot of those crazy shows. I would be able to sneak into a few. Um, but I mean, I was going to the Christian punk hardcore stuff, and those things were just as violent most of the time.
oh, I went to some with you, and some of the gnarliest pits I ever saw were at those.
Yeah. My parents weren't saving me from
Yeah.
violence by sending me to just the Christian shows.
Yeah, and we all got really good at fabricating stories. Like we'd all call our moms and say, "Oh, I'm spending the night at so and so's house," and then he'd call his mom and say, "I'd spend the night at so and so's house," and we'd all be telling our moms we're spending the night at each other's house. But the reality is we were driving to San Diego to go to a show and sleeping in a car afterwards, you know, and then getting chased by the cops. So
I think out of everyone that I know, I feel like you have some of the craziest stories. Like
I do.
everything just seemed to happen to you.
Well, it's because I did so much.
Right.
And, touring is like, you know, every other night there's a story. And I wouldn't say that we were looking for trouble, but we were looking for experiences. And, if there was a bridge over a river that we were going to jump off, we were going to jump off of it. Just every city was like, okay, we're in St. Louis. And, we went to the Budweiser brewery and snuck onto the tour. And then everyone drank all the free beer afterwards. Or, you know, our drummer quitting the band in Texas and just telling him get out of the van and driving home and leaving him on the side of the road. Like, and what I love is like I play hockey with these dudes who are all pretty normal,
Right.
and sometimes I get to telling old punk stories, and they're just like, no, that didn't happen. Like, not only did it happen, but it happened like 5 weeks in a row this
Right.
happened. And a lot of the stories aren't even like the gnarliest ones. There's some that I don't want to tell. And I don't want to seem like I'm glorifying violence, but it's what happened, and it was something that you had to accept if you wanted to be a part of that thing. In the 90s in
Right.
Southern California, this is just what was going to happen.
Right.
Once I stopped drinking and became more aware of what was going on around me, I remembered a lot more, and that was cool. And I thought about writing it all down before I forget, but all the concussions are probably gonna catch up with me.
Possibly.
Yeah, who
It's
knows?
like not only punk, but then you would go and just play hockey all the time too.
I know. And that we're talking about like having a bad back. Like, what's really bad on your back? Tennis. You know what I did for 5 straight years, nonstop? Tennis,
Yeah.
stage diving, and then ice hockey. I haven't been good to my body.
Yeah. I think I'm going to need knee replacements at some point from everything that I did
Oh yeah,
because I was
probably.
kneeling on the stages half the time.
Yeah. And so many people I know that were in bands have had joint problems
Yeah.
from jumping and stepping wrong. Or there's one show I played where I jumped, and when I landed on the stage broke and my leg went all the way through it.
Ooh.
And that hurt for weeks.
Yeah.
Uh, like those kind of things happen all the time.
Yeah. I remember playing a house show one time with my band Faith Snakes. Like maybe 10 people there. I don't even know if that many people, but during one song, I would always just try and find one of the higher things that I could find to jump off of. So I found a built-in barbecue, and it was out on their like wood deck. I jump off of the wood or the barbecue, land on the deck, fall forward, straight on my knee on the crack of the wood. So it was like this little like raised part. I still have a dent in my knee from that.
That's
That hurt for
Yeah.
years, I think.
I have a dent in my skull right here from Gilman Street in Berkeley, famous club, stage diving mishap. And what's funny is I don't remember anything after I landed until I woke up in the office. And the guy who dragged my lifeless body off the floor was the bass player, some of my favorite bands. And then I signed him to Rev, and that's how we met.
What band was it?
It's for fucked up.
Oh wow.
They did Generation, and when they play that song, I can't help I can't control what happens.
Yeah.
And they have a no stage diving sign, and they mean it. And I don't think people were ready. And I had blood gushing out the back of my head, and my eyes were all zonked out because when you get a concussion,
Yeah.
your pupils get all that stuff. And I was a mess. But I met Brian Stern that night, and he became a very good friend. And I signed his band, and I put out 3 of his records.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So I do have some bitterness towards you because
Oh, oh dear.
I discovered this band. I think it was a used bin at Bionic Records when I was looking for horror punk bands, and they were a band
Okay.
called the Nerve Agents.
Oh boy.
And I found this record and it blew my mind. And I'm like, dude, Adam, I found this really cool band called the Nerve Agents. And you're like, oh, yeah, they just broke up. I used to book their shows all the time. I was just like,
Yeah.
you're dead to me.
Yeah. I've actually because they were on Revelation Records,
Right,
and I've been talking to them almost every day. We're reissuing their entire catalog on
right.
Revelation with new shirts and everything, and expanded booklets, and it's going to be amazing. And this is one of the things that is like so crazy to me is that I started out, I got the first Nervadians record to review for a dumb little fanzine that Sean Hunter had. And well, no, no, no. First, I liked Redemption '87. I liked
Yeah,
Eric's band before, so I got that CD to review, and I was like, "Oh, this is Eric from Redemption's band. It's more punk sounding. This is awesome."
right.
And they put out the LP. I mailed ordered it from Revelation Records, And I remember the girl doing mail order at the time calls me at my parents' house. She's like, "Is this Adam?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're gonna ship your nerve agents." Like, "Okay, great." And then I go to Santa Cruz for school and I end up booking a bunch of nerve agent shows in Santa Cruz, and I live there. And they wouldn't let me pay them. They said, "We want you to give all the money to the touring bands," because the shows, had like Kill Your Idols from New York played one, and a bunch of bands had come up from Southern California. They said, "Give all the money to the touring bands, and then keep a chunk for yourself because we know you worked really hard." And they wouldn't let me give them a dime. And then I end up getting a job at Revelation, and I over the last few years I've become pretty close with Eric, the singer, and I can say that he is one of the nicest, most genuine people I've ever met in my life. And there aren't many people in the world who have gone out of their way to ask me how I'm doing, and not just like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like he says, like, "No, how you doing?" Like really. And if I'm not having a good day, if I'm depressed, if I'm dealing with anxiety at that point in time, I can tell him, and it
Right.
won't scare him. And he'll have a conversation with me, human to human, and he legitimately cares. So, being such a fan of this band has become stronger because of the person that he is.
Right.
And now I've been dealing with Andy, the drummer, a lot, and he's awesome too. Like he's great. And he's also in the Distillers, but he's everyone in that band was always so good to me. And every time I saw him, I would run into Eric, like when I would drive up to go to shows at Gilman or up at the Barry, and I'd see him and say, "Do you remember me?" He'd be like, "Of course I remember you.
Right.
You're Adam. You did those shows in Santa Cruz." And like, you know, he remembered me, and he really cares. And it's one of those little things that like I think about, like I get paid. Someone pays me money to work with this band that
Right.
I deeply love. And just just working with them on these reissues, and they asked me to actually like write something for one of them, and like, wow, you really want to use something that I wrote in your record?
Yeah.
This is nuts.
Right.
And they've gone out of their way to make everybody who is a fan of the band feel like they're a part of it and
Right.
feel special, the way very, very few bands have. So I'm sorry you never got to see him, and I don't think you ever will.
I've watched on YouTube. I figured
Yeah,
that's going to be, my only shot, but
and they've been a huge part of my life on so many levels. I'm still very, very good friends with. I've only lived in Santa Cruz for 9 months, and I'm still very good friends with those guys, partly because we all love nerve agents, and
right.
they helped me book those shows. Like one of the shows they played, a guy who I work with now kind of got broken in half, and Eric, the singer, took him to the hospital. And when they did that, they did a bunch of covers, and I sang one of them. And there's a video out there of me singing my favorite Negative Approach song with nerve agents. I'm like, dude, how cool is that? Yeah, my friend who is like a video archivist, I think he has it. So, and he was digging up all these videos to try to use in their like we're making a bunch of like video teasers and stuff. So
Right.
I think he's gonna dig them all up, and there's gonna be some really cool content coming along with these things.
It's amazing.
I can't wait.
I feel like hardcore and punk, especially, is such a unique scene where, you have the bands that are big, so they have a little status, but even those bands tend to be, hey, come join us, come hang out, come,
Yeah,
be a part of this, and like everything is just so open.
they're approachable,
Yeah.
and I think the whole point, and I think this happened more as punk morphed into hardcore, was that there are no barriers between band and audience.
Right.
And I think that is one of the most important things about the whole scene, and can't get lost. And one
Yeah.
of the problems I have now with a lot of the newer bands that are heavier sounding is their the way people dance is just like basically just punching and kicking everyone
Right.
in the sides. So no one's up front.
Right.
And being up front and face to face with the band, I think is what set us apart. That's what
Yeah.
makes us unique,
Yeah.
is the fact that when a band is playing, we can literally be 6 inches from their face.
Right. Or
And
sit on the stage with them while they
yeah,
play half the
and
time.
well, you know, sing the lyrics and
Right.
have them give you the mic to sing the lyrics. Like I don't think I think without that, it misses the point.
Right.
Things are going to evolve and things are going to change, and
Right.
we're not always going to like it. But I think at its core, we need that. We need the interaction between artist and fan.
Right. I mean, I think that's what sold you on it, and I think that's what sold me on it was like you step in to this, like have such an incredible moment, and then you basically go, I can go home and do this.
Yeah.
And you get your friends together, start a band, and I mean, you may not be good or anything, but it's like you
No,
have that
doesn't matter.
chance. It doesn't matter exactly. But it's like the bands allow you to be a part of this.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it's definitely what attracted me to it.
Yeah.
And it's not just that that's just part of it. And I think a lot of what attracted me to it was, you know, a lot of it came along to me in a time in my life where I needed something like that. And I think a lot of the people, especially as you get older, you know, we're we're broken. We're all dealing with something. We're
Right.
not there's something within us that makes it so we're uncomfortable or feel out of place in the normal world.
Right.
And we need that scene, that group of like-minded individuals
Right.
because we don't relate to other places.
Right. I mean, I even an experience where it wasn't even necessarily you were all like minded, but it was a gathering of people open to just be together.
Yeah.
And you had the common bond of the music. You like the music, but it was, I feel like the 90s was like I don't see it as much now where, being a Christian, going to Christian shows, half of the bands were playing with secular bands or half the crowd was not Christian and but still would go to the shows because everyone just
Yeah.
supported the scene and the
Yeah.
bands, and I don't really see that as much these days.
Yeah,
But
but here's another thing to look at. You're a Christian.
right,
I'm definitely not. But we connect because
right,
of this. And there's something within both of us that made us seek it out
right,
that you and I can, you know, put aside what differences we have
right,
and bond over this thing. And I think that it's actually caused the two of us to, I think, to have a better friendship. Because I remember on one of those, you know, for those watching this who don't know my relationship with Chad, we used to take our trip to Arizona every year. We'd go to a Kings game,
yes.
go to a Kings game, eat pizza, go to sleep, eat Waffle House, and come home. And that was like literally it. But there was one night, there's one drive where you and I talked about religion.
Hmm.
And I don't think I ever told you this, but I think it meant a lot to me that we were both able to open up about this thing that, you know, I think a lot of people who don't agree on it, I think would be afraid to talk about,
Right,
but we were able to. And, you know, maybe it's because we connect on other things where I felt safe
right,
sharing with you. And I wanted you to feel safe sharing with me,
right.
that there wasn't going to be any judgment,
Yeah,
that we're, you know, maybe the fact that we have this bond over the music scene, like we can be like, okay, there are things that we can talk about that maybe most people can't
right.
because we already have this built-in respect because of this other thing.
Right. Yeah.
So
I mean, I think a lot of that comes from just we had shared enough experiences to where we knew each other.
yeah,
And you kind of see the heart of each other. You know where they stand,
hmm,
and you become like okay with it. You're
yeah,
like, they they do that. I don't. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
We're going to go see the Kings. We're going to go
yeah,
eat some killer food. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't say it in the intro. I almost did. You were my assistant photographer for the Long Beach Ice Dogs there for a little bit, and it was like we just did so many like fun things together. Yeah,
Then we had to go and be adults and
right.
not do stuff like that anymore. But yeah, none of it mattered. But would we have cultivated that friendship without the music, which I think is what made us friends in the first place in high school?
Punk and hardcore and hockey. I think,
But I don't, in high school, we never talked about hockey. I don't think we talked about that till later. That's kind of when I was too punk for hockey. And the Kings were so bad then, I didn't care
right.
because they were just dismal.
Yeah,
So, and I like my whole life was hardcore and punk music. Like that was every waking second of my life.
yeah.
So everything else kind of took a backseat.
Yeah, it was definitely the music because I remember like bringing my old high school band's demo tape to you and Sean and being like, "Hey, check it out! I play punk music."
Yeah. And I remember, I'd go to shows with you, and while, a lot of the message wasn't, necessarily something that I related to, I think there was still something within the people there that I shared.
Yeah,
Like objectively, punk music isn't very good. Come on.
yeah,
So there's a reason you're there listening to that music.
right,
So, even if we're totally different in terms of, religious beliefs, we're still there for the same reason, pretty
right.
much.
Yeah, we're all drawn to the noise.
Yeah, it's terrible music, dude. It's really bad.
Yes and no. I would say like punk music. I remember watching a YouTube video on, and it was some like, music theory guy trying to explain punk music. And he's like, it has nothing to do with theory. It's all
Mm-mm.
about location of where the notes are, how fast you
Yeah.
can get to a spot. And
I,
I mean, it was, cheesy watching this guy
yeah.
who shouldn't be playing punk explain it, but it made being in a band accessible to kids who didn't have like training.
No.
Or I mean, most of the time, no one had aspirations of anything. It was just, I just want to get together with my friends and play shows and like go to fun things, you know?
Yeah, it almost isn't even about music at all.
Yeah. It's an
When you
excuse to
when you
gather.
Yeah, or like, my old roommate is in a band. He's a teacher during the year, but he's in a band, and every summer they go and tour Europe, and they tour Southeast Asia, or they go to Japan, or they go to this other place, and he's using it, as a vehicle to see the world, which is
Right.
that's super cool. Yeah, I got to do it for a while, and luckily I had a job where everyone there was like, "Oh, we've all toured. We understand. If you want to be gone for a month, you'll have a job when you get back. That's fine."
Right. Yeah. At one point, I don't know if they still have it, but there was a policy at my work that you could be gone for, I think, up to 6 months on tour.
Yeah, that's great.
You wouldn't get paid, but it
No,
was like, you're
but you
touring, go
would,
for it.
yeah, but you would have a job when you get
Yeah,
back, which is
exactly.
important. Like one of the kids that I work with, he's only like 23 or so. He just did back-to-back tours with his two bands, and he was really nervous asking for the time off. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?
Right.
Dude, you're 23 years old. Like, go see the world.
Yeah.
Go use this music and go see the world, because I guarantee you other 23-year-olds aren't getting that opportunity.
Right.
Like, you need to take it. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you're taken care of when you get back."
I mean, that goes back to, being now the facilitator of
Yeah.
letting people pursue their own creations.
And it's also the creation of your own path in life,
Right.
and not doing something that you're supposed to do. Like, I didn't have a very traditional, path in where I became today. I made it myself. I created
Right.
it myself. There was no planning. Like, this was all just like nothing I've done was planned ever. Just everything's just been like, I'm gonna do what I think is right now. I'm gonna do what I think
Right.
is right. At one point I decided to go back to school because at that time that felt right. I guess that's creation.
And now you have a degree in geography.
Geography, yeah.
Right.
And what am I doing with it? Nothing.
Selling records.
Selling records. But I do it, I think, with kind of a geographical mindset.
Right.
And you have to, like, if a band is from a certain area, you got to know, like, oh, I'm going to try to push it over there. Bands on tour, it's like, okay, I know these cities, or I know like what genre, like what style of hardcore is big in New Jersey. So like, I know what to sell to a store in New Jersey, and I know what to sell to a store in Seattle, and I know what to sell to a store in Tokyo. It's all very geographical, but I didn't need a degree for that stuff.
It really is a testament to what you've done is you followed, what you thought you should do, or you followed your interests and just went with where they took you.
I did, and I just didn't want a degree where I had to do much math. That was important.
Good thing you're in sales.
Oh, dude, I do so much math at work though. Like I do most of my own accounting, so I'm still
Right.
doing math. I'm looking at Excel spreadsheets. I was
I,
doing another interview where a guy wanted to talk to me about analytics. And I was like, and I had to like reflect. I was like, oh my God, like so much of my job is analytics and Excel spreadsheets and Excel formulas and accounting and stuff like
right.
that.
I made the joke one time that, the further along you get in your career doing your creation, it's more, you just are doing more and more spreadsheets and doing less of your creation.
Yeah, but spreadsheets, things like that are extremely practical are almost a tool to help your creation because I feel like
Yeah,
I can do a better job with some of my analytics and uh just like inventory sales reports and seeing what's selling a lot makes my job as a facilitator easier because I can visualize, trends in sales and profit numbers and all that. Like it's actually probably aids my creativity.
definitely agree with that. But it's just kind of funny how, the further along you get, the more you actually become organized in what you do.
Yeah, you have to be.
Yeah, as younger creators, you're just like flying by the seat of your pants, like just trying to
Yeah,
do as much as you can, to just get the experience going. And then
yeah.
once
But
you
I
have that
mean,
experience, you're like, oh, I need to figure out how to package this and
because
organize
you
it.
have to figure out ways to do it more efficiently,
Right.
especially since I do so many different things at work. I can't just come in and be like, well, I wonder what I'm going to do today. It's like I need to, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it this way. If I'm going to do this, I need to do it this way. And I've been doing it for 20, oh my God, 23 years. So I haven't figured out like, and I have to because I do so much. If I
Right.
don't do it the way I do it, I'm not going to have time to do everything I need to do. It's a necessary evil. But yeah, it makes the job easier and it makes it so I can do the the fun things, the creative things more because it's if I can do the mundane things efficiently, I have more time to do the fun things inefficiently,
You can spend time
exploring.
on it.
Yeah, and like exploring new ways to do things and new bands and new labels and new stores and stuff is you can't really plan a lot of that or do it that regimented. It's it's just gonna kind of got to happen organically.
Right. So the moral of that story is be organized so that you have the time to let things happen organically.
Yeah, to explore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean,
And
definitely. I try and do that. I try and tell, the people who work for me, the photographers under me, I'm like, look, you know what you need to do. If you do that, no one's going to say anything if you are, checking out YouTube channels, if you're out, talking to someone, or hey, you want to shoot something of your own, your job is done. No
yeah,
one's going to say anything. So it's like I've learned to work fast at work so that I can then do other things. Or because I'm, the senior photographer, it's I need to do this and I need to do this and this and this. So it's like
yeah,
I need to be efficient to get it
yeah.
all in.
And since I do so many different things at work, a lot of our success relies on me, which is like crazy to think about that, this business relies on me and I don't have time to do the proactive things to like, if I want a good relationship with a really good record store or record label, I got to put in the effort. And
Right.
if I'm doing a bunch of stuff that's just like data entry, clerical work, I'm not going to have time to do the proactive things that are going to make us the money because, stuck doing this other stuff inefficiently.
Right.
So, you know, being creative with the product I bring in, and so much of our success is based on the product. Like, you know, COVID when that happened and everybody was buying records, it's because they were staying at home. Like that was an anomaly, but our success is you can look at it, our most profitable times are when we have a really, really big, good new release to sell.
Right.
And I want to be able to go out and get those things for us.
Right.
And if I'm stuck doing these other things, I can't do that. And and it hurts.
Do you ever think you'd be talking about how to efficiently market and sell records at age 44?
I don't think I ever really thought about like my future like that, like ever. So if like I know I say like, oh wow, I never imagined I would be doing this at this age. Like I never imagined I'd be doing anything at this age.
Well, just based on your stories, you probably were like, I may not have a long future.
Sometimes I'm surprised I made it this far, just with some of the things I experienced and even some of like the mental health things I've gone through, like drinking I did, and to be here and to be in this situation and in my own house with this job still is and very happily married. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it
when
is.
we were younger, I wasn't putting a second of thought into my future.
Yeah.
Nothing. My parents were trying to, but I didn't think about it.
I don't think most of us did at that point.
No. Even well into my 30s, I was thinking about it.
I kind of just go, well, one day at a time. I'm shooting
Yeah.
this. I'm following the doors that seem to be opening.
I think my wife is much more of the future planner than I am, which is awesome. And one of the reasons why I think we work so well
Right.
is I'm much more of a live in the moment person, and she's much more practical. So it's a good balance.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a healthy pairing. You need
Yeah, I
someone
mean,
to keep you grounded, but someone who also lets you be a little free to.
yeah. If we were both the same way, like either we would be so regimented we wouldn't be enjoying life. We would be enjoying life so much we'd be doing a lot of really stupid things.
Yeah.
You have to have experiences though, and that's kind of what I've gone for is just experiences.
You have quite a few.
Yeah.